Welcome in to Red Corner, Blue Corner, right here on Stadium. Jake Butt, the Michigan Wolverine, joining me today. All-American twice over, team captain, Mackey Award winner, all-around good guy, accolades galore.
I'm blushing, but it is my honor to join Joshua Perry because he was a captain, but he's also a national champion. And we're in national championship season right now, JP.
Yes, we are. And even though we're in championship season, we got a ton of storylines floating around the sport. We're closing in on signing day here next week as well. We'll get to some of that. Before we do, we want you to make sure that you get involved in this show. You can scan that QR code on the screen, submit your content. We also want you to follow us on Instagram at @redcorner_blue corner.
I got a story for you.
Okay.
Now, they're not in the national championship race, but maybe next year because this team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, are making big-time moves on their quarterback position. It's generating a lot of buzz around the program. So let's start with Kyle McCord. Yesterday, he visited Lincoln, and today his teammate Julian Fleming will also be visiting the Huskers, but it doesn't stop there. It was reported last night that the #1 high school quarterback in the country, Dylan Raiola, will visit Lincoln this weekend. Program is smoking hot. Raiola's dad played at Nebraska, and his uncle and his assistant coach there right now. He's currently committed to Georgia, but many recruiting analysts are giving the crystal ball saying he might flip to Nebraska. Here's the catch, though. Raiola originally committed to Ohio State, later changed to Georgia. Not just that, he's also attended 4 different high schools. So he's been clearly talented, but he's been a little bit flaky. Maybe, I don't know, maybe if that's not the right word. I don't know his character, but he's certainly bounced around a little bit. JP, does that concern you at all for his future at potentially Nebraska?
Feels like a little bit of a flight risk, and we know the mobility that exists within college football today. If I was a coach, I would definitely be concerned. I would start with the high schools there, and I know he's had a very successful high school career. The question is why? And you can understand a kid maybe moving to a different school to get some more exposure. And understand the last move, he moved to Georgia to be closer to the program, try to recruit some of those kids out of Buford there, and didn't necessarily happen. So the movement in terms of high school, in terms of the commitments to colleges, definitely raises a red flag for me. The other thing that I'm curious about is for UGA right now, the state of their program. One of the top dogs in college football. You've got this kid, #1 quarterback in the class. All of this momentum for Nebraska. He's going to visit Nebraska. The recruiting analysts are saying that he's going to flip to Nebraska. Georgia is not losing a kid like that if they really want him to a school like Nebraska. And this is no offense to the Cornhuskers. I think that they are on the rise. They're in completely different places as programs. And I would look at what Georgia has going on right now. You got Carson Beck, looks like he's getting ready to return. And then they've got another quarterback in this same recruiting class that is committed, a 4-star guy. Already signed his letter of intent. He's getting ready to enroll in about 6 days here. You tell me what's up.
Yeah.
It feels like a kid right now that is maybe seeking the opportunity where he might be able to see the field a little bit sooner rather than going to a place where he could be developed and ultimately have better success in the long run.
You hit a great point because we could take a snapshot of both programs, and maybe desperate isn't the right word for Nebraska. They're certainly desperate for a quarterback, though, after what's gone on there, particularly with the turnovers in the past few years, whereas Georgia is a team that's not desperate at all. They can be patient. And I think about this because it's a snapshot of NIL and the transfer portal in general, where culture matters. Georgia has a culture. They have a locker room culture. They have a clear direction for their program that leads to winning. They've afforded themselves the right to be patient and strategic. Now, Nebraska's being so aggressive that they're not just going after the #1 high school quarterback, they're going after Kyle McCord, and I think that just tells you, I think it's a good thing. You know, Matt Rule wants to win. You got to get this thing figured out. But it just shows you that where Georgia's at, where Nebraska's at, clearly, obviously, different places. But you got to get that one figured out.
Nebraska's trying to fill 2 holes right now, which is interesting because they know they need a veteran guy who can go right now. Because what they have on their roster was not good this year, and we both know that. They could not throw the ball effectively. They turned it over entirely too much. That's where Kyle McCord comes in. plug and play right now. But they're also trying to find that quarterback of the future in a guy in Dylan Raiola. And we'll see what happens with his recruitment. And quite frankly, we'll have to see if he pans out there. This is going to be one of the more intriguing things to watch, though, because I think to get Kyle McCord on campus, it's going to come with the price tag. You and I both believe that it's somewhere north of $500,000 as a one-year rental at quarterback. And we'll see if he's able to translate and continue to develop, maybe have to go out there and have some success with lesser weapons at Nebraska. And then for Dylan Raiola, who knows what the asking price is for the #1 quarterback in a high school recruiting class. They might have some cash tied up in some dudes, and they got to make sure it hits.
And here's the concern, because if Raiola's transferred, he's been to 4 different high schools already searching for the perfect job. What happens if they get both? I don't know what promises are being made to Raiola, but if McCord comes in, I'd imagine because of his experience, he's plug and play as a starting quarterback unless Raiola's fantastic, right? So you're going to invest some NIL money to him, and then Quinn Ewers, he might bounce anyways. It is just a really tough time in college football, but I really appreciate what Matt Rule's doing. You have to be aggressive. This is what you have to do. There's so few quarterbacks in the college game right now. You got to do it. We got some awesome comments right now, JP. Seems the audience is split on my sweater. What do you think about the sweater? Can I ask your opinion? You're a stylish guy.
It's a great sweater. I told you,
Thank you.
When I first saw you today, I'm like, damn, that's a nice sweater. I wish I had one like that, but I don't currently. So we'll have to get that straightened out. I know Mark had a comment up there, really kind of cheeky one. What will Matt Rule complain about if he has the NIL to go get a 5-star QB?
Great point.
Right? I mean, and I think we talked about this when he made those comments. I think he was telling the administration what they needed to do to be all hands on deck. I think he was speaking to some of the donors to that university, what they needed to do to be able to kind of attract the type of kids that they want to have to build the program around at the quarterback position. Maybe some of them stepped up, or maybe he was just lying the whole time, but just wanted to kind of, hedge a little bit.
We're going to transition to Minnesota here in a second, but I think what you just said is a really important point, because Matt Rule has been real subtle about his communication. It hasn't been overbearing. He's just planted seeds like, hey, if you don't want to spend the money, tamper your expectations. But Minnesota's a different story, right?
Well, Minnesota is a different story. They've got questions on the NIL front. They've also got questions with their coaching staff. So Minnesota DC Joe Rossi leaves Minnesota. He's headed over to Michigan State. This is one of those intriguing moves because it's not necessarily a huge step up, and it's a lateral move for a guy in Joe Rossi who we both think is a good coordinator. This also isn't the first time PJ Fleck has had a coordinator do this. He had Kirk Ciarrocca on staff with him at Western Michigan, comes over to Minnesota. Then Ciarrocca gets offered the OC job at Penn State, which is a step up. And so he takes that. That doesn't work out. Ciarrocca goes to West Virginia to be an analyst, I believe. And then Minnesota hires him back. And then he goes from Minnesota to Rutgers, which is not a step up in competition. Some people at the time may have said it was a step back. We don't know. But ultimately, you've had 2 coordinators for PJ Fleck leave for jobs that aren't technically better jobs. Why would they do that?
Well, I think part of this is the conversation we were just having, right? Where I think it can be a bit, exhausting at times. PJ is a high energy guy, and that works at times, but it can also wear on your staff, right? Especially if you're asking the staff to maintain that same level of energy. I also think part of it is you're demanding this energy and excitement and elite outlook, but yet you're playing extremely conservative. You're not necessarily playing to win. That disconnect can weigh on people. I think it's soul-searching time right now for Minnesota, because one thing I do know, Coach Harbaugh had a saying, when someone would leave the program, whether it was a coach or even a trainer or a player, he would always say, we're going to replace them with someone better. Here's the issue with Joe Rossi. In 2022 and 2021, Minnesota's defense, not littered with 5 stars, 4th in scoring, 6th in scoring, 9th in total defense, 6th in total defense. There's not defensive coordinators that you're going to replace to be a clear upgrade. So the challenge is what can you do to at least match it, right? The program's in a really tough spot, and I don't think complaining about NIL and money is going to serve Minnesota really well. It is soul-searching time for that program.
You know what PJ Fleck feels like right now? It feels like the things that we were saying about James Franklin in terms of his woes with offensive coordinators. I don't think that the offensive coordinators for Penn State have been a problem because these coaches are objectively bad. I think they have been a problem because they do not mesh with the head coach. Oof. These are people who did not necessarily want to hitch their wagon to that head coach for entirely too long. And what we're seeing with PJ Fleck, and I do think he's a good ball coach, and you're right, he's way too damn conservative for all of the stuff that he talks about. But this is a dude who has offenses that have been effective at running the football. The defenses have been very good, emphasis on special teams, all the things that good teams would typically do. But the coordinators are like, I can't be here. And even if I have to leave for a job that's it's not really a step up, it's about the same as the one that I have, I gotta go. And that's where you have to, as you said, take inventory of what's going on. Is it attitude? Is it expectation? Is it treatment? Is it any of those things? And if it is, as a coach, your job is to adapt. Because as they say, adapt or die. And that's what can happen to the program.
It's an interesting place for Minnesota. They are banging their head against the ceiling. They're banging their head. What do you do to get to the next level? Well, you have to change something, or you're going to go from Paul Chryst to PJ Fleck. You're going to make moves like Nebraska has. So that's the challenge. I think it's really funny to talk about Raiola, the high school quarterback, transferred to a bunch of places. PJ Fleck, a bunch of quarterbacks, a bunch of coordinators have come through. What's that old saying? If you have a friend group of 10 people and you say, hey, they all of them are the issue. They got the issues. What's the one common denominator, right? It would be the head coach or the quarterback. So in this case, you have to look internally, Minnesota, in a really challenging time for the Big Ten Conference as a whole. It's going to get harder before it gets easier. Got to figure out a way to get this program headed in the right direction. But we got some more exciting segments here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. A pair of coaching titans are getting ready to square off in the Rose Bowl. Can Jim Harbaugh get his elusive first playoff win? And has Michigan learned anything from the past few years? That's next on Red Corner, Blue Corner. The U.S. Army Bowl, which features some of the top high school recruits from around the country, will be streaming for free here on Stadium. You can tune in on Monday, December 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to catch it.
This ought to be a good one. You played in that game, right?
Oh, yeah. Best good versus good. Little clarity. How good are these high school guys, really?
Yeah, and it's
Who
free.
stands out?
So make sure you jump in. If it's free,
can't beat it.
It's for me. That's what some of us say in the community. We're back here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. We've got some comments, and people are buzzing about some of the different topics. One of the topics here is about Jake. It's from Sam and T-Bob. Jake, I love the sweater. And then I agree, Sam Brief was thinking the same thing.
I love you guys, man. This is, you know what? You guys are all right. You guys are the best, actually. You're making me feel great today. Thank you. Thank you. I feel good about the sweater.
It's a great sweater.
Yeah.
It is a great sweater. I think we also have a comment from Mark here. Jake's sweater has drawn more opinion than Florida State's whining about getting left out.
Whining?
Wow.
Mark, I thought you were for the little guy.
Wow.
Whining?
Well, you know what? This is a more intriguing topic than talking about Florida State and their misfortunes there with the college football playoff. Before we get to our next topic here, I wanted to bring this up. Just saw it on the socials, but Emeka Egbuka says that he is playing in the Cotton Bowl, is undecided, though, about whether he's going to come back. Real quick, what do you make of this?
Okay, I commend him. I'm glad to see guys play. I will say, I think maybe he's playing because he was injured all year and he's had a chance to get his body fully healthy. If he can show the Emeka at his best where we thought he was a first-round pick going into the season, that could influence how he plays in this game, basically, I think could influence his decision on staying or leaving.
Yeah, I think it's an intriguing thing. I think he should come back. And I know he was banged up for part of the year, but he just, even when he was healthy, didn't necessarily look like the same receiver that he did the year before. It's also fairly intriguing to me, too, because we're asking a lot of questions about the quarterbacks here, and Emeka is at least confident enough to give it one go with whoever is going to be playing quarterback, and that'll probably influence whether he really wants to come back or not, too.
Totally.
Is how the quarterback in the bowl game is spinning it. So I think this is something really huge to watch here, both for Emeka and what his future is, but also if he's satisfied with the quarterback play, things might be a little better in Columbus than people originally thought.
That's a big game for many reasons. That's a great point.
It's going to be one of the fun ones to break down. I know, like, people talk about bowl games that don't mean anything. I think that game means a lot to a lot of people in Columbus, and you definitely know
Absolutely.
In Missouri they care about this one. And a game, certainly, that means a lot is the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day between Michigan and Alabama. I mean, it's going to be one of the most talked about games leading up to it. The viewership's going to be crazy. And they're two of the most recognizable, notable coaches in the game, Jim Harbaugh for Michigan, Nick Saban for Alabama. Saban, you got 7 national titles. This college football playoff thing is something that he's done, and he's done well. For Jim Harbaugh, this will be the 3rd playoff appearance in a row. Have not led for a singular second in a semifinal game. Can Harbaugh formulate the plan to take down the legend?
He has to. He has to. And I can just think about 2021 when they're playing Georgia. It felt a little tight, a little bit maybe shocked by the bright lights that they were there. And then 2022, you listen to the players talk, and I liked the confidence, but it felt like to them they were maybe a little too loose going into the game, almost like they thought it was a foregone conclusion they were going to beat TCU. Now is the time where they find that confidence, but not too tight. They find that happy medium, and they're going to need to do it against Nick Saban. You know, the challenge here, this is so much about coaching in these bowl games because it's like a shooter. When you're hot in the NBA, you don't want to come out. You want to keep going. Michigan's been rolling all season, so they have to find that balance where they can get healthy but still come in focused and hot for this game. These games where you have these long breaks, 100% on coaching.
Yep. I mean, I'll explain a little bit about the coach I played for in college, in Urban Meyer. I thought that he was so organized when it came to the bowl prep. he had a plan. We would break it down into phases. The first phase was about conditioning, just making sure that you kept the shape that you were in during the football season, maybe even enhanced it since you had some extra time. Then there was a phase about development of the young players, development of the veteran guys, and also development of a preliminary game plan. And as it got closer to game week, that's when the game installation would go in, and it was back like we were in a normal game week during the season. And I felt like when we got in that rhythm, it allowed us to grow as a team, but also to lock in. And it didn't feel like we did too much work, but we also felt like we were supremely prepared. And I think for Michigan, they have to find what that secret sauce is. You're looking at a coach who's 1-6 in bowl games at the University of Michigan. Part of that, to me, feels like the bowl plan and the prep going into it. I look on the other side for Nick Saban. This is what he does. Postseason is when he shines. He's, most legendary coach in the postseason that we've seen in our lifetime. You know he's going to have his guys prepared. And I think the other thing that factors in here is time and motivation. Time to develop game plans, time for guys to get healthy, J.J. McCarthy, and then how do you use that time to motivate your team to be the best that they can be on New Year's Day?
I love what you said about those phases because I was part of the early Harbaugh transition, and I remember when we lost to Florida State in the bowl game, and he said, it's going to be Christmas camp. And there was no conditioning or weight room or young people development. It was foot on the gas, full speed straight ahead. We were down in the bowl game. We didn't even do any of the activities, the bowl activities, because it was all about practice and meeting. We would start our day at 7 a.m. and end at 9 p.m. I know for a fact we went into that game much more tired than we probably should have been. So again, it's about finding that balance. This Michigan team's mature enough where I feel whatever Harbaugh, whatever plan he devises, they'll execute it. The question is the plan he devises the best plan to go forward? I
think he should listen to his veteran guys too. You know, some of the guys who were there for the last couple years, because they can give the feedback on what they need leading into this as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got some fun stuff for you guys. As you know, we got the crossover with Rivals Down South. But with 1 week until early signing period, things are getting a little bit crazy, and there is one fan who has devised a crazy plan to keep his recruits at home. That's next here on Red Corner Blue Corner.
We're back on Red Corner, Blue Corner. Jake Butt is joining me. I'm Joshua Perry. Time for a little conference clash here with T-Bob Hebert and SEC Mike. Now, guys, you know it's silly season right now. People trying to finish off the recruiting classes, and you're hearing the buzz about Dylan Raiola potentially flipping from Georgia to Nebraska. And there are some fans on the internet that are trying to devise a plan to keep him a Georgia Bulldog. I want to read you this. Laguna Dog wrote on a message board, it's being reported that Raiola will visit Nebraska on Friday. If some loyal UGA pilots or flight attendants call in sick at the last minute, the flight could be canceled and we could keep Raiola. Maybe someone working could hold up the flight for maintenance issues. He could lose his checked bag, so he'd have to experience the Nebraska winters without a jacket. I'm just spitballing ideas. If anyone has anything else, it'd be appreciated. Guys, what the hell?
This is, I love this. It's sincere. It's passionate. It's also horribly naive and uneducated on the Raiola's connection to Nebraska, right? Like, that man doesn't know exactly what he's getting to when he gets off that plane weather-wise. And let's be painfully clear about this. It's already done. The visit is to cross the T's, dot the I's, and start the celebration. Dylan Raiola is going to be a Nebraska Cornhusker. And boys, the Corn Hub is back stronger than ever. I mean, as if Matt Rule wasn't already good enough in year number 2. Now he's going to go get Kyle McCord and Dylan Raiola. Let's freaking go. I'm so excited, dude.
Yeah, I mean, SEC fans, we may be a little off, but our heart is in the right place. I mean, if not for the Tennessee fans, Greg Schiano's probably Tennessee coach. If not for Texas A&M fans, Mark Stoops, probably the coach in College Station, trying to land a 5-star quarterback. It's just business as usual on the message boards down here in the SEC.
I mean, this is wild behavior.
Potentially illegal?
Is it?
No.
Messing with the fight, trying to backdoor ground a fight.
I mean, calling in sick is not illegal when you're not sick. It's probably unethical, maybe a fireable offense, but you're not going to jail.
Is the airport's like federal? No, you wouldn't go to jail. Maybe a fine.
Look, if you aren't willing to tamper with a commercial aircraft and endanger the lives of hundreds of your fellow human beings, do you really want to win a championship?
Well,
okay?
Who said they were going to endanger anything?
Kirby Smart didn't build this empire under the nose of Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney by playing nice, okay? No, look, Hartsfield-Jackson is the most busy commercial airport on the entire planet. There's a lot of damn good dogs working behind the scenes there, and I expect somebody to step up and make this plane short out so Raiola can't get on the plane and head up to Lincoln.
I don't think anybody was asking for that. I think they were just asking for like a little fake maintenance issue or whatever the case is. Best part about that is the thing you mentioned at the top, the jacket situation. Not sure that would stop it.
No, look, nothing is stopping it. Raiola is going to be a Husker. We could talk about it. Me and Mike are going to break it down a little bit later. But I think this is great for college football. It's about as great for college football as Jake's wonderful sweater is for us today, which I really do think looks fantastic. And I know a lot of people are making jokes, Jake. I think you pull it off. I think it looks wonderful. I think you look cozy. I feel like I want to have a glass of eggnog with you. I feel like I want to invite you over and just like maybe play some board games by like candlelight or by the fire, or play some chess even. Oh, yeah, now we're talking.
That's right.
All right, boys.
You nerds.
So we just talked a little SEC Big Ten with Raiola, Nebraska, and Georgia and everything. Let's talk Michigan, Alabama. And I kind of want to frame the question in the same way. First off, let's be clear about the storylines, right? Michigan hasn't won a playoff game. 2 for the last 2 years. The most embarrassing loss probably in playoff history is them losing to TCU last season. I haven't won a bowl game since 2016, I was shocked to read. And then on the other end, here you have Nick Saban. The Empire, 8 national championships, all of that. 7, going for 8. What is better for college football as a whole? Alabama winning this game or Michigan winning this game? Jake, we'll start with you.
Well, of course it's Michigan winning this game, right? You know I'm going to pick that anyways. But actually, let me explain why. And what's best for college football is engagement. Even though Florida State got left out, think about how explosive that moment was as we talked about the playoffs and started previewing these matchups. Saban winning, though they're the 4 seed, would not really surprise anyone. It'd be like, it's the same thing. We've seen it 100 times. For every reason you just mentioned, getting Michigan to a national title and then winning that. Think about the polarization of that moment. I mean, of course, Michigan fans are going to love it. They'll be vindicated. A lot of the country is going to say, this is ridiculous. They've been hating on them all year long. I just think that engagement would be great for college football, as well as the fact, man, have a new champion. Imagine like a Michigan versus Texas national title game. That might blow out every viewership record.
Let me tell you why the right answer here is Alabama.
Oh.
Is a dynasty good for sports? Some people argue yes, some people argue no. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. Michigan is under investigation for cheating. They're under investigation for cheating. And if that investigation turns up that the things that they are alleged to have done happened, how can you legitimately punish them if they win the national title? In many ways, it would invalidate the whole year of college football. For the sake of punishing somebody who cheated, they cannot win, because I believe if they win, you can't vacate the whole season. They don't want to have to vacate a title, and we just rewarded people for cheating. It's wild. So the only right answer is Alabama. As much as you might hate Nick Saban, as much as people might hate the dynasty, as much as people might hate the SEC supremacy, you can't let cheating win.
This is not rewarding them for cheating. This is not winning would be rewarding for their hard work and their coaching scheme and their veteran players and their experience. You can punish cheating. This wouldn't be a reward for that.
Don't do that.
There's something to be said for becoming too big to fail. And if they earn the natty now without stealing signals in these last 2 games, well, I think and plus, like, in America, we love cheaters. As long as you just continue to win after he catch you cheating.
Not me.
Look at the Astros. Look at the Patriots. Look at Tiger Woods. We don't care. You want to run around, that's fine, but you better win. Okay? And that's where Michigan's at. Mike, I'm guessing you're going to carry the water for your boy Greg Sankey here. Go ahead and say Alabama. Give me whatever reasoning you think.
Well, hey, believe it or not, I'm right there with both Jake and Josh. I mean, I can see both arguments here, but I will say what was the question? What is better for college football? And yes, I do think it's Alabama. Let them go on, but I'll surprise you with why. Because there's a lot of discussion that NIL, transfer portal, Nick Saban's kind of over and done with it. I think we can all agree this is a masterful coaching job, taking this Alabama team where they were the first month all the way to the college football playoff. I certainly didn't see it. But if he were able to lead this team, this Alabama team, which is probably his worst since 2008, if he could take this team to the national championship, where is there left for him to go? I think he hangs them up. If Alabama wins this national championship, it opens up college football to the rest of us long-suffering fans under the boot of Nick Saban. We maybe finally be done with Darth Vader if we just let Michigan get out of the way, let Alabama win this one. Do it for the rest of the country, please.
Wow.
My God, you son of a gun, SEC Mike. I did not think there was any way of convincing me to maybe take some solace in another Alabama championship, but I'll be damned if you maybe just didn't figure it out. That is the only acceptable. This is like Infinity War, right? If we go through all the different realities, and if that's the one that it takes to get Nick Saban finally the hell up out of here, then okay, I will sacrifice myself for the greater good. CFB expert, quote, in America, we love cheaters. T-Bob for president, 2024 slogan. Hey, look, I'm just telling like it is. But look, okay, if Nick Saban is not to retire, though, I clearly want Michigan. I'm bored of the same old song and dance. Michigan hasn't won in forever. New champions are exciting. Brands coming back are cool. I think, I know it sucks for Ohio State fans to be a bit like a nightmare come true because, I mean, not only would they have the 3 wins in a row, 3 Big Tens in a row, but then they'd have a natty where like Ohio State's last natty was like 10 years ago.
They'll be worse than Florida State fans if they win a national title. They will be worse than Florida State fans. They're already getting there.
I'm like a World War I isolationist. You know, like I'm not over there in Europe. I don't really have to deal with it. Like you're France and Germany, you got to handle each other. I'm kind of over here like, oh yeah, let them win. Why not? That'd be fun. It feels like, to me, Michigan being good, it feels a bit like a Norman Rockwell painting, right? There's just something like should be snow falling outside. It just feels like at least the kind of optimistic vision of what America could be in like the 50s or whatever. So I don't know. I would go Michigan unless Mike is right. And AJ McCarron's told us that Nick Saban is thinking about being done with it all. But if Mike's right and a natty would make him hang it up, then hell yeah, Bama, take the 8th one and get the hell up out of here. I'm sick of it. All right, Joshua. All right, Jake. Thank you so much. You boys have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow. Right now, it's time for me and SC Mike to dive in some rivals down south. And look at this. 3 great quarterbacks on the screen right here. Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels. And coming into the year, Mike, everything was about Caleb Williams and Drake May being picks 1 and 2. Jayden Daniels maybe viewed as day 2 guy, maybe probably a day 3 guy coming in. And then slowly but surely, okay, I think he's day 2. Oh, wow, you know what? Jayden Daniels can crack the first round. Now it's Jayden Daniels top 10. Now you're even seeing Jayden Daniels. I saw a mock today being mocked to the Giants top 4. And now there's questions about whether Jayden Daniels could overtake Drake May. It still feels like Caleb Williams is going to be pick number 1. But what do you think, Mike? If you were an NFL team evaluating these guys, would you give Jayden Daniels a look over these other 2 guys that are basically locked in for the entire football season?
Yeah, I certainly think you have to consider it, T-Bob, because we all know these NFL GMs, their jobs are made or lost based sometimes solely on how they draft a quarterback. So you can't just go with where the consensus was. Thankfully for Jayden Daniels, I mean, the NFL game is where it's at today, because 10 years ago, I think he would have been too small. He would have been too slender. These quarterbacks getting roughed up, but the way we protect them in the NFL, I mean, you could make the case, T-Bob, Jayden Daniels not only the best quarterback in the SEC, the best running back, he is in the truest sense of the word, a dual threat quarterback.
Yep.
I think, he could take the NFL by storm, a la Lamar Jackson, and be perhaps even, I think he's a better passer than Lamar Jackson. So give me Jayden Daniels. Give it. I would maybe even take him even over Caleb, who, the best thing I've ever seen him do is paint his fingernails.
Okay. Relax on Caleb, and it's not entirely fair. That said, look, and this is where it gets tough, right? Because Jayden and Caleb did deal with similar situations this year in which they had to try to overcome awful defenses. Caleb really felt like he was pressing much of this season, and it led to a lot of bad plays, whereas Jayden seemed to somehow be, incredibly explosive while playing within himself. That said, Caleb Williams didn't have that offensive line that Jayden Daniels had. He didn't have those receivers that Jayden Daniels had, right? So Jayden Daniels did have, that's just a great offense as a whole out of LSU this year. You mentioned, though, and so I don't know if I'm there yet with Caleb. With Drake May, though, you got to really ask yourself, who do you think projects to be the better NFL guy out here? Because you mentioned it, the meta is shifting. And not only is it becoming more friendly for, as you said, more slender quarterbacks or quarterbacks that want to run, but just look at the win-loss success that Lamar Jackson has had since he entered the NFL. He's been dominant. Who's the 1 seed in the AFC right now? The Baltimore Ravens, 10-3. Lamar Jackson's healthy again. They're winning games again. And if we look at comps, you have Caleb Williams, competent. And it's not to say there's going to be these guys. It's just a kind of stylistic choice. But you have Williams to Mahomes, obviously. A lot of people talk about Drake May to Aaron Rodgers when you talk about the athleticism, the ability to have a rocket arm at all, off the back foot, all kind of crazy stuff like that. And Jayden Daniels comps to Lamar. But as you said, a better thrower coming out of college. And so when I look at the success that Lamar is having, how quarterbacks are treating the NFL, the true dual threat of Jayden Daniels, and most importantly, the leap that Jayden Daniels made this year, because there's a ton of guys that are physically gifted enough to play in the NFL. You see it all the time. What's the difference? Do you have the fortitude, the mental ability? Do you have the work ethic? And when you see a guy like Jayden Daniels, where coming out of last season, he can't read defenses, he can't go through his progressions, he can't throw the ball with anticipation over the middle, he can't throw the deep ball accurately. He didn't just prove people wrong in those counts. He blew them out the water. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens because you committed and you worked your ass off. So here I have Jayden Daniels scoring elite on the physical side of the scouting equation and elite on the intangible work ethic side. of the equation. And yeah, I think you got to look very seriously at taking him over Drake May. Here's what Mel Kiper had to say, quote, you look at Lamar Jackson, what he's doing with the Baltimore Ravens, a franchise quarterback. So for Jayden, I think the big thing is especially protecting the football the way he did. Strike that balance, to be aggressive, to let it rip, to run the way he did, to elude, evade, and run through contact the way he did, and yet not turn the ball over is really impressive. And he goes on to say that Jayden is, yes, indeed challenging Drake May. So I'm fascinated to wait and see how this next portion goes. I think that Jayden should follow Drake May and Caleb Williams in declaring, skipping the bowl game, getting a head start on the NFL, and let's see how the chips fall where they may over the next month. Coming up next here on Rivals Down South, Nick Saban up to his old tricks on the recruiting trail, and which SEC coach is under the most pressure this bowl season? We'll tackle it next here on Rivals. Welcome back to Rivals Down South here on Stadium, youtube.com/watch Stadium if you want to get in the chat. Here's a video of old Nicky Saban in the Ferrari during the recruiting visit. He's showing this off to Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. Of course he is. If you don't know, Nick Saban actually owns a Ferrari dealership. A group that he is a part of brought a Ferrari dealership in Nashville. It's one of 60 in the entire world. Also, for the real keen-eyed Mike, you can tell I've always heard about Saban's tobacco habit. It's never been out that publicly, but if you check them doors, there's a few bags of Redmond loaded up and the center console. My man keeps that thing on him in true Southern style. But how about it, man? Nick Saban, as if he doesn't have enough to recruit off of, now can show off the Ferrari that he got from his own personal Ferrari dealership.
Yeah, but if you watch that video, T-Bob, I mean, you don't see a smile on his face. You're right. He's got the 3 cups of dip. He's got all the chew in this, $1 million vehicle, not a smile on his face. This is what I'm talking about. I don't think he wants to fool with all this. He'd rather be in the film room. He'd rather be breaking down Michigan. doing this, doing that. I think he's so close to the end. He can smell it. He's got 2 games left, and then he can drive that Ferrari off into the sunset.
There, you're right. There is something hilariously incongruous about a big cheek full of red men while you're driving around in this Italian supercar doing 100. Or actually, he's like an old man now, so he probably doesn't even drive that fast. You know, he's going like a responsible 55 in the Ferrari in a 55. Look, let's talk bowl game pressure, right? And if you're talking about Nick Saban, I guess there's an element of pressure, though he's already exceeded the expectations that people had, especially after the rough start earlier this year. So he's kind of playing a bit free here bowl season. Let's go coach by coach through the rest of the – well, first off, do you agree with that assessment on Saban? Like, is he under any great external pressure to win another national championship here?
I don't think so. And I think, again, it goes back to this is a team, T-Bob, that needed a miracle to win the Iron Bowl against a 6-6 Auburn team. It's just miraculous that they got here. That Georgia SEC championship, that felt like the national championship to me. And of course, they got to finish the deal. But I think that's the one where Saban, even though they were the underdog, I think they had some pressure because had Kirby beat them, and Kirby went on to win 3 in a row, something Saban never did. I think we all would have known that the student had become the master, and he said, "Nah, not quite." And that's why he's the GOAT.
And I'm looking at the poll here that the fans are voting on. Mark Stoops leading the way. Let's go ahead and go name by name, and we'll pick our winner at the end. How much pressure do you think Lane Kiffin's under here?
Yeah, not as much as some of the others. Of course, I call him Lane Whiffen for a reason. 2 elite teams he faced this year, Alabama and Georgia, lost to them both. He's under, I'd say, medium pressure in this one.
Look, I think this is big for Lane. No, not the most. We'll get to who I think is the most, but I think this is big for Lane. A chance to win 11 games for the first time in school history. And when you look at Penn State, Mike, it's kind of a favorable matchup, right? It's a team that looks great on paper, and he could say, look at my signature win. Here it is, this very good Penn State team, top 10 team in the country, but they're kind of incredibly flawed, right? So, I think their fans expect to win. I think this is a golden opportunity for Lane, and if he lets this go by without winning, then Whiffen Kiffin should carry the day. That name should stick. What about Hugh Freeze? Obviously, Auburn having the awful Iron Bowl ending. For me, I think year one was defined by the nightmare in Jordan-Hare. You beat Maryland, great. We're still only going to remember the nightmare in Jordan-Hare. You lose to Maryland, who cares? It's just a little added anger on top of the nightmare in Jordan-Hare. So I think Hugh Freeze is basically pressureless right here.
Hey, I would agree with you, T-Bob, if not for, how about the week prior to the Iron Bowl, getting embarrassed by New Mexico State at home. I don't think we can afford – again, the future's bright on the Plains, but I don't think we can afford a 3-game skid going into the offseason. I think some fans are going to be questioning Hugh Freeze if that's how we end the season for Auburn.
What about your guy, Josh Heupel out of Tennessee? How important is it for them to beat Iowa?
Honestly, T-Bob, I think it's massive because coming off an 11-win season, just going down to 8-4. That's not the standard at Tennessee. We all like to make the Iowa jokes. They're awful on offense. They're elite on defense. Josh Heupel's supposed to be an offensive mastermind. I think he fell well short of that this season. If we can just get to 14 points, you got to feel confident that you're going to beat Iowa. If they can't do that, then I think we're going to start seriously wondering if Josh Heupel was a one-year wonder here at Tennessee.
Yeah, the difference between 9-4 and 8-5 is hard to overstate. And the Tennessee collective's paying way too much to lose to Iowa. I think Heupel's under the most pressure to anybody. I think Brian Kelly's second on this list. I think the entire season is on the line for Brian Kelly against a really bad Wisconsin team. If you can't beat them and get to 10 wins and you go to 9-4 and you've wasted this Heisman season, it will create an offseason of anger for the LSU fan base.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, the LSU's hopes and dreams, they've been dashed since week one for me, T-Bob, because I had them winning the national championship, and we knew that wasn't going to happen after week one. So I'd say minimal pressure on Brian Kelly.
Kentucky Mark Stoops, for me, no pressure on Mark Stoops. Kentucky fans, they know what they're getting. They're getting 8 wins. They're getting a 3-5 SC record, and they'll shut the hell up and be happy to pay $8 million for it, Mike.
This is the guy that I've got under the most pressure after the A&M scandal, losing to South Carolina. The end of the season was awful aside from Louisville. I think most pressure, Mark Stoops, this is a must win.
No, Jimmy Sexton just told them, shut up and be happy with Mark Stoops. Texas A&M almost wanted him, damn it. I don't believe it, dude. Get the hell out of here. Still to come, we'll introduce a few new faces that are coming to the SEC next year when Rivals Down South returns. Welcome back to Rivals Down South here on Stadium, youtube.com/watch Stadium Viewing Involved. Mike, transfer portal is fun. Like, bottom line, I think it's awesome for college football. And again, it taketh, it giveth away. So some days you're going to be upset about it when your team loses guys. You're going to be happy about it other days. But it is fun. And even now, I'm starting to get excited about some of these new faces that we're going to see in the SEC next year. And look, for all the complaining that my guy Mark Poops did earlier this season about Kentucky fans and needing more money for players. Well, the reason why coaches do that, the reason why Matt Rule was just last week talking about the price of a transfer quarterback is just to let their fans know exactly what they need. And here, Kentucky, they're adding former Ohio State running back Chip Trayanum. They got Brock Vandagriff coming from that Georgia quarterback room. In your mind, how big of pickups are these for the Wildcats?
Well, these are huge, T-Bob, because Kentucky, for whatever reason, they can't develop talent. But what they do is they identify guys via the portal, and they bring them in. And more often than not, they get the most out of them. Devin Leary, I think, is an obvious exception there. But this is what you want. You don't want to reload, have to build from scratch. You're reloading there for Kentucky. I love these moves for the Wildcats.
Well, and I love because all the moves we're talking about here, whether it's Blake Shapen, who is now going to Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby also landing the number 4 quarterback in the 2024 class, flipping him from Oregon, and Michael Van Buren. What you're seeing is in the transfer portal, you're seeing that democratization, right? Where no longer can a Georgia just hide away a Vandegrift for years and years so that nobody else can. No, he gets opportunity now to go play. How about the job that Jeff Lebby's done here early on at Mississippi State, landing these 2 quarterbacks? I'm pretty impressed, man. It's kind of akin to what Rule's trying to do in Nebraska and getting McCord to transfer and then getting the future right with Raiola.
Right. This is the beauty of the portal, T-Bob, where we don't have to sit here and wait year 3, year 4 for results. We can get them overnight. Optimism. Mississippi State, dreadful on offense a year ago with Lebby, with Blake Shapen and his experience, this young recruit. We may have a high-flying offense day one. I'd love it if I'm a Hail State fan.
Yeah, man. And even the Arkansas Razorbacks getting in the mix as they had Boise State transfer Talon Green, quarterback, who Bobby Petrino, as you told me during the break, familiar with from his time in Missouri State, where he wanted to recruit him there. SEC Mike, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody watching, hanging out. This is wonderful production staff at Stadium. Y'all the best. We'll see you tomorrow in a brand new episode of Rivals.